previous videos, I presented irrefutable evidence of life after death and explained where we end up afterward. I also discussed what dreams truly are and showed the tragic consequences faced by suicides after their death. I shared several of the many NDE stories I have gathered over more than 20 years of researching the phenomenon of death and life beyond the physical body. If you haven't watched them yet, I encourage you to click on the name of my channel and go to the video tab, where you can find all the videos I have made so far. In this episode, I will present another NDE story from my collection. This will be the story of a boy who experienced clinical death as a result of a bike accident. During this experience, a mysterious being showed him his past incarnation and answered his questions about reincarnation.
This story took place in 2018, and I was 17 at the time. As soon as I came back from school and had lunch, I would immediately take my bike out of the garage and go to my friend's house at the end of my street. My mom tried to make me study, but I always found a way to dodge it, saying that the teachers didn't assign anything, that I already did my homework at school, or that I would do it later, and so on. The only thing that mattered to me then was to gather my friends and ride to the nearby forest. I loved that place. We had built a shelter there from branches we found. It was big enough to fit 12 people, and right in front of it, we had arranged a fire pit from stones. We also made various tracks that we rode our bikes on. My forest is on the side of a hill, so some of these trails were quite steep and dangerous. But those were our favorites. As for the shelter, and I always had this strange memory since I was a child. A small old house in the middle of the forest, like a cabin surrounded by all sorts of stuff. It had only one room, and in the corner stood an old cast-iron stove. I felt like I had been there before, inside that cabin, but I couldn't remember when. Even though it was old, neglected, and cluttered, I felt a strange attachment to it. It seemed like a safe haven, so that's probably why I loved spending time in our shelter, even alone when my friends were busy. One day I was sitting there with my best friend, watching funny videos on our phones. It was August, so it was a very hot day. As we watched those videos, we could hear thunder in the distance. We ignored it, hoping the storm would pass by. Unfortunately, the thunder grew louder. The forest became really dark, and a strong wind picked up. We looked around and decided the storm wouldn't pass us by. So we got on our bikes and started heading down through the forest toward our homes. We had only ridden a few meters when the downpour started. We were riding fast because it felt like the lightning was striking nearby. At least that's what it seemed to us. We chose the fastest but not the easiest route. My friend was right behind me. The rain made riding difficult, but we were terribly scared of the thunder, so we wanted to get home as quickly as possible. At one point, as we reached the edge of the forest, my bike skidded on a turn. I was thrown off the trail and crashed at a high speed into a large tree, but I didn't feel any pain. It just went dark, and I was flying somewhere. Suddenly it became bright, and I noticed that I was floating among the treetops. The rain was still pouring, and thunder was crashing. When I looked down, I saw my friend running toward me, or rather, toward my body. I thought, oh my God, I'm dead. But strangely, it didn't scare me. The storm and the thunder didn't seem frightening anymore. My friend, however, was terrified. When he saw me lying motionless, he pulled out his phone and called for help. I said to him, dude, don't panic. I'm still alive and feel fine. In fact, I felt incredibly good. I was calmer than ever. I wasn't worried about anything. I just felt pleasure from simply being. It's hard to describe it in words. Suddenly, I heard a deep male voice say, do you want to return or come with me? I seemed to see all directions at once, but I couldn't see who was talking to me. I asked, where are you? To which he replied, everywhere. I asked where I would go with him if I didn't want to return to my body. He answered that he would take me to another world. I asked if I would have another body there or be like I am now. He replied that a new life in another body was already waiting for me. I said I didn't want it because I felt great now and wanted it to stay that way. He responded that I had wished for it as a reward for my previous life. I wondered what life was he talking about. Then he seemed to read my thoughts and showed me scenes from that past life. As I watched, memories from that life came flooding back. I had a tough childhood and suffered a lot at the hands of people in the town where I lived. So, at the age of 30, I built myself a cabin in the woods and lived there away from people. And it was the exact same cabin I had seen in my memories. After finishing viewing that life, I asked how the next one would look. The voice replied that it would be as good as my current one, but much longer. Indeed, my current life in this body was great and almost carefree. My parents earned well, I lived in a big house, had lots of friends, and a girlfriend. And as I was thinking about this, the being read my thoughts again and said, "If you wish, you can return to this good life and end it in old age." I asked, "What about the next one?" The voice said, "You can have as many lives as you desire." I thought that since the current one would be good until old age, and after it, I would live on, I agreed. The being read my thought again and said, "So be it." Then everything around started spinning, and the next thing I remember was waking up in the hospital.
This is yet another NDE story that provides us with a wealth of knowledge about death and life beyond the physical body. In my opinion, the mysterious being was one of the overseers of the world of suffering. We clearly see here that our protagonist already had a contract for the next life, but he negotiated it a bit. It's also worth noting what the being said about his future life. Our protagonist was supposed to live it as a reward for the previous one, which was full of suffering. Therefore, we can clearly see the workings of karma, which significantly influences what our next life will look like. We should also note that initially, our protagonist did not want to return to any body because he felt excellent in his non-material state. However, he was relatively easily persuaded to return. This, in my opinion, is a key issue we should remember when it comes time to end our current life. To avoid reincarnating again, we must, during our current life, not only gain knowledge about life beyond the physical body, but also strengthen our awareness and mindfulness so that no one can cunningly persuade us to do something we don't truly want. You can read more about this in my publication, where I have compiled all the knowledge about life beyond the material body that I have gathered through over 20 years of research and personal experience. The purchase link is in the description below the video. There you will also find my email address, where you can send your NDE experiences or those of your loved ones or friends. I will try to make new videos from them if that's what you wish. That's all for today. Thank you so much for being here, and see you in the next episode.